What's going on, guys? Aquaman here, back with another video. Here today to give you my review of Fabio Foreign's new mixtape, Without Warning. So this is Fabio's third project, but I think second, since he's really been able to push into the limelight, and the first since he has really sort of come into his own as an artist and really stamped his mark on New York. His previous effort was on the Bible. That was his debut album, and overall the album was pretty good. Very, very strong with very high highs, but did leave a lot to be desired in a lot of departments. For one, the album was bloated with features, no doubt due to the Kanye impact, and with Kanye's current state being feature heavy, Favi kind of adopting that nature. But it kind of, for Kanye, that style works because he's already proven himself as an MC. He's already proven himself as a solo artist. But for a debut album, it was definitely a bit underwhelming to sort of feel like Favi very rarely had a second verse on a lot of his songs. Also, while there were a lot of witty punchlines and a lot of fun, catchy lines, there wasn't a whole lot in the way of lyrical focus on this project. And so for the next album, I was hoping to see him sort of recalibrate in a way where he got more lyrical focus and maybe lowered down the features a little bit, and really got back to just rapping. And I am happy to say that seems to be what he did on this project, Without Warning. That being said, there were some problems I had with the record, so let's talk about all of it. To start, let's talk about the writing, and this is absolutely the biggest improvement from the Bible over to this one. The project starts with T Dot trying to get T Dot back, which is a generic drill track, but with more lyrical potency than I'm used to hearing from Fabio. It's just basically an onslaught of violent and gritty bars about what he's trying to do to his ops, with the general theme of the thing being he's trying to kill enough to get T Dot back, right? T Dot of course being his fallen friend, who I think lost his life in, I want to say 2022, because I'm pretty sure it was like a little bit before the Bible came out. Then the next song you have is For the Moment, which has a deeper, more somber beat with some pianos. And this one I was really curious to see what he was going to do. And to my surprise, when listening to it, he actually dives pretty deep into the nature of street life and how any sort of fun or pleasurable aspects of it, such as getting back at your enemies, is really temporary. And the consequences are going to come very, very swiftly afterwards. And then he kind of, for contrast, goes into the long-lasting nature of the advantages of leaving the street life, and goes into, for him specifically, what it was like to meet new people in the industry and talk with figureheads with real wealth, and build a bit of a longevity in his in his rap career, and sort of and I think contrasting that with the short-term gain of the street life, or the short-term pleasure, I should say, of the street life. Then we get Concussion, which overall I think is probably the worst song on here. And I really, really hope this is not the song that gets the most attention. But it's weird because it feels like this song has all of the ingredients to be an amazing song. Dope cinematic beat. I really enjoy the pianos on this one. A Ye feature, and Fabio. What could possibly go wrong? They've got two back-to-back bangers, but this really kind of falls apart at the seams. One of the problems in this album was that because there was no label support, I think the mixing was definitely negatively impacted. And so Favi's voice is not mixed as well, is a little bit more choppy and muffled. And you can imagine for Kanye, someone whose features were already sounding muffled and clipped and not that great, this pretty much makes his verse vocally unlistenable, on top of the fact that lyrically he's not really saying much. at the very least, in older Kanye and other Kanye features, while his views may be a bit weird and problematic, he at least sort of explains his perspective, but we don't really get that on this one. It's just kind of a rattling off of bars, and because Kanye has never been the strongest lyrically, it really falls flat. Then we get the acapella portion of Fabio Foreign, which is really strong. I'll give you. I really enjoyed the motivational bars, and that's something I enjoyed over across this entire album was the very uplifting and motivational nature to a lot of his songs. Um, and he even has a bar about how they were telling me to go viral, but I went a different route, sort of saying again this conversation about how stuff is for the moment, versus like longevity. And he talked about in a documentary recently about how he is with this album trying to build a legacy and build a consistently solid discography, which I'm eager to see. And I'll get into my final review of whether or not that is the case. But the acapella portion was fire, and when he's writing the beat, it sounds immaculate. It sounds absolutely amazing. But then his flow kind of get trips up, which is kind of a shock because Fabio Foreign is always someone who's known for being very precise and accurate with his quicker flows. But it kind of feels like he adopted one of his flows that doesn't quite hit the nail on the beat, and so it kind of just sounds like he's like it's just spoken word over a beat, and there's no rhythm to it, and it really sounds off. Um, on top of the fact that I think at that point the beat becomes very sort of white noisy, very intense, almost to rage esque. And while I do like that Fabio is experimenting, I think over time it got a little bit much with all the sounds that were going on. And with him rapping on beat, I think the song just got very claustrophobic. And so overall, while lyrically Fabio did his thing, the Kanye feature as well as the offbeat rapping at the end was pretty disappointing. But we pick it right back up with what might be the best song on the album, and definitely the one that I'm listening to the most, called "Well Off." This is a sort of in the middle track where Fabio is talking about the importance of keeping your homies down while also experiencing success, and your obligation to help those who brought you there, who may be in prison at the current moment, right? Saying that because he is well off, he may not hop on the jail call himself because, he has a certain, image he's trying to hold up, but he will definitely always send money to the people who supported him and the people who were there for him, which is a really dope message. And I think a message of loyalty that in the current climate is really, really important. Then we get to Drilling, which are a couple of stories about how he watches youngins really go and jump off a cliff when it comes to this gang shit. And it's honestly kind of, of course, it's beyond this knocking it away and it's the Favi flow. But it is kind of really sad to listen to Favi, and even he sort of in his tone sounds a bit disappointed with how willing some younger kids are willing to just throw their lives away for the sake of beef and for the sake of gang violence in the city. While also saying that unfortunately he himself is still entrenched in this style. It does land a bit weird conceptually though, I think, because while he does sound disappointed about the fact that they are such young guys doing the drill, he also kind of I think somewhat brags about the fact that he has those guys as shooters. And so conceptually I think it lands a bit weird, but it is still an interesting dichotomy, I guess, if it's sort of from the point of a self-reflection where it's like these people that I know are engaging in dangerous activity, I still rely on to sort of engage myself with with this gang culture. But overall, a really interesting track, and a really nuanced look at how gang violence can affect children. Fair Chance is another dope one off the record. Beautiful vocal sample. Moving away from a drill production, I also noticed still the drill hi-hats, but overall just not that iconic drill bass line and stuff like that. Where Fabio is going over where Fabio is talking about sort of his journey getting here and sort of asking for a fair shot, a fair shake, in this very violent world that he's sort of living in, talking about the people who hated on him and uh, hit their effect on him, and how he is moving past that hate and pushing forward regardless. Overall, really uplifting song. And while I wish he could go a little bit in depth here, a little bit deeper with this one, still pretty solid on the writing front. Oh, and I forgot to mention one of the other things, one of the other criticisms of his last record was there was a lot of weird, like, questionable lines on it. This wasn't personally a really big issue for me, just because I don't know, I just tune that stuff out. But for a lot of people, stuff like on Through the Fire, I'm fucking a demon while riding a demon was a bit weird. But I heard this, and obviously those bars give me pause when I first hear it, but I eventually just kind of get enveloped into the soundscape. But for some people, that really does, it is a bit of an issue. But I remember I heard a weird bar on here where he was like, the same feeling I be coming. But what I realized was, like, that was really the first odd ball bar that I had heard on this album. And so that was another way that, in the writing perspective, he also kind of cleaned up those weird bars that, didn't really have much of a place on his album in the first place. And so that was also something I noticed with this song. The last two songs are two back-to-back love songs. I think in sequential order on purpose. The first one sort of talking about the club lifestyle and talking about women, but from the perspective of being concerned about gold digging and living that fast life, smash and dash, whatever, whatever, and talking about getting to know people from the club and really refusing to be tied down to any one woman. And then that is followed up by No Rumors, which is, I think, a better version of the song Love Songs that we got off of the Bible, where he gets a bit deeper into a relationship with one person that he has. And in this song, you see him far more comfortable to sort of express his feelings. And he actually has some really good bars. One of them, I think, really stood out to me, was like, somehow, even when I'm sick of you, you turn into a nurse, sort of using a metaphor saying, like, even when I'm mad at you, you still find a way to be valuable and incredible in my life, which I think is a really dope flip. And overall, was a very, like, heartfelt letter to whomever it was, about how much he means to the person, and I think gives a really powerful message about how it's not about the differences in opinion that you and your spouse may have, but it's more about the values that you all have, and the desire to work together and work through hardship, and the willingness to work through hardship because you care that much about that person, that really counts. And this was definitely one of the deeper songs on the album, along with For the Moment. And I was really impressed. And I think, as opposed to, say, What's My Name or Love Songs, it felt a lot less like he was relying on the features and the samples, and more like he was really just talking. And I thought that that was dope to hear. The production, and so overall, I would give the writing a great. Still could have more lyrical focus, and the punchlines could maybe be a little bit stronger. But I would say that this was definitely a stronger writing performance than the Bible, and he is 100% trending in the right direction. And this is a really dope progression to see. I just don't quite think he's on the level of, Benny the Butcher or Conway or, Joey Badass quite yet, right? And so, getting into the production, this was conversely the biggest downgrade. Now, I'm a bit mixed on how I want to do this, because, like, the raw score of the production, if I take everything out of context, would be a good, honestly. Like, I love drill production, and so I really enjoyed the soundscape, but, like, it was definitely a bit of a letdown coming from the Bible, that I feel like had very strong production. And a lot of this came down to the fact that I'm not the biggest fan of the Bronx drill style. One of the reasons I'm not a big fan of the Bronx drill style is because of the production. A lot of the drill beats, particularly the dragged out 808, is very distorted, and doesn't really take into account the mixing of the rest of the song, and therefore sounds somewhat unprofessional and, like, very messy to me. And there was a little bit of that on this album, and it's kind of unfortunate because it's something that I always liked that Fabio didn't do. And the thing, and this is why I say it depends, is like if this was his decision to make because he wants to keep up with the Bronx drill guys, then yeah, the production is just good. It was still super creative. I love the bongo drums, I love the vocal samples, and I still really like the beat on Concussion, but as an overall experience, I just really don't enjoy those distorted 808s um, that seem to be prevalent nowadays that really just mess up the bass experience for me. And so I'm gonna give this production a between a good and a great. I think if we eventually get a better version of on DSPs, then I'll definitely give this a great. But I think for now it's unfortunately sitting at a good. There was only one feature on here, and as you might have surmised, this was bad. This was a pretty bad Kanye feature. But I think, like I said earlier, the fact that there were less features on here was definitely a good sign, and I really appreciated Favi's willingness to carry his own tracks on this album in general. Finally, the musical execution, and I would give this. I would say I'm gonna give it a great. I was debating between a good and a great because, and this is where I can kind of really delve into the differences between the Bible and Without Warning. I think that just from a quality standpoint of the songs, the Bible hit way higher highs with songs like Magic City and Changed on Me than this album ever hits. However, I think that besides Concussion, there's no song Without Warning that is as bland as For Nothing, um, or and even Concussion. I think isn't all that much worse. It's probably actually I would say that Concussion is probably better than Hello if I'm gonna be honest with you. And besides Concussion, there's nothing as bad as Love Songs, right? Um, and most of the topical tracks on this album are very much improved in comparison to songs like Whoever and Can't Be Us from the Bible. And so overall, I think that this listen was a lot more consistent, which generally you're going to get with a shorter track list. But I think that overall, this was kind of a nice middle ground between the high highs of the Bible and the low lows of the Bible. That being said, I think overall it fares worse because of the mixing and production issues I mentioned earlier. If those weren't fixed, I would have no issue giving this a great, but I think with here it barely makes that great. Where I'm definitely going to be listening to most of the album, but it's definitely not going to be as pleasurable of an experience as listening to the Bible was. But in its totality, it is far more consistent. All right, and flows is like Favi's just got amazing flows in general. I really appreciated the different deliveries he had on songs like No Rumors and For the Moment, where he got into a more deep and introspective delivery. Of course, the ad libs are always fire, the fast flows are always fire. Because he had those real dips in quality on No Rumors and Concussion, where he's just frankly rapping off beat and they are kind of noticeable blemishes on the record, I am going to give him a great instead of an amazing. And because there are less songs on this album, those moments do stand out more. So overall, I'm going to give him a great for the flows. And if he had fixed those two, it would have been an amazing or maybe a perfect because of the context of a mixtape. So overall, I like the flows, and he just again those customary ad libs that he always brings us. So overall, I thought the flows were really good, and overall, I mean, I thought the project was great, man. I thought the project was great, uh, and I think while this may not net him the biggest hits, although I think T Dot I think T Dot is back could get pretty big depending on what happens with it. But while this may not net him the best in terms of mainstream success and fighting for the crown of King of New York or whatever, I do definitely feel like this is a positive point in his legacy and a good start to building a flourishing discography. And if Fabio keeps this up, he could definitely find himself 10 years down the line in a top spot, which is actually a video I will be working on, actually. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, with that being said, let me know what y'all thought of the record. I overall enjoyed it with the problems that I mentioned. And overall, I'm definitely happy with Fabio and what he did. I'm still a fan, right? And I would definitely be bumping this. With that being said, thank you all for watching. Make sure to subscribe. And with that being said, peace, y'all.